Dogs have walked beside humanity for millennia, their presence woven into the fabric of our myths and legends. But their story is not merely one of loyalty and companionship, it is a tale steeped in mystery, danger, and the unknown. From the shadowy corners of ancient temples to the eerie moors of the British Isles, dogs have been both protectors and harbingers, their fates intertwined with the destinies of gods and men alike. In the crypts of ancient Egypt, where the air was thick with the scent of incense and the whispers of the dead, a figure loomed in the darkness: Anubis, the jackal-headed god. His eyes gleamed with the cold light of the underworld, and his presence sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to invoke his name. Anubis was more than a guide, he was the gatekeeper of the afterlife, leading souls through the treacherous paths of the dead. And at his side, ever watchful, were the sacred dogs, their eyes reflecting the flickering flames of the torches as they guarded the eternal secrets of the tombs. In the depths of the underworld, where shadows twisted and the cries of the damned echoed endlessly, there stood a beast that struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest souls. Cerberus, the three-headed watchdog, was no ordinary creature. His growls shook the very foundation of the earth, and his eyes burned with an otherworldly fire. None could pass the gates he guarded, save for the rare few who possessed either divine music or Herculean strength. But even these heroes knew that to face Cerberus was to stare into the abyss itself, a place where death was not the end, but merely the beginning of something far more terrifying. High above the mortal world, the gods themselves played a dangerous game with fate. Laelaps, the dog destined to catch whatever it pursued, was unleashed upon the Tumasianasian fox, a creature fated never to be caught. The chase was a paradox, a cosmic riddle that twisted the very fabric of reality. As Laelaps closed in, the world seemed to hold its breath, teetering on the edge of an impossible conclusion. But Zeus, watching from his throne, knew the danger of such a clash. With a flash of his mighty hand, he turned both animals to stone, freezing them in time and casting them into the night sky as eternal constellations, a warning to all who would dare to defy the natural order. In the epic tale of Odysseus, where gods and monsters shaped the fate of heroes, there was one figure who stood steadfast, even as the world around him changed. Argos, the old and faithful dog, had waited for his master's return for 20 long years. His once keen senses had dulled with age, but his loyalty never wavered. When Odysseus, disguised and weary, finally returned home, it was Argos who first recognized him. The dog's tail thumped weakly against the ground as he breathed his last, his purpose fulfilled. Argos' death was a quiet, poignant reminder that even in a world of gods and legends, the bond between a man and his dog could transcend the boundaries of time and fate. In the mist-shrouded hills of Wales, where the veil between the living and the dead was thin, the eerie baying of the Cwn Andaman could be heard on stormy nights. These were no ordinary hounds, they were the spectral dogs of Andaman, the ruler of the otherworld. Their coats were as white as bone, their ears blood red, and their eyes gleamed with an unholy light. These hounds were harbingers of death, leading the souls of the departed on the wild hunt, a terrifying chase through the night skies. Those who heard their howls knew that the end was near, and that the boundary between life and death was about to be crossed. In the remote village of Gelert, a tragedy unfolded that would echo through the ages. The air was thick with tension as a man returned home to find his baby's crib overturned, and his faithful dog, Gelert, standing nearby, blood dripping from his jaws. Blinded by grief and rage, the man assumed the worst and struck down the dog that had been his loyal companion. But as Gelert lay dying, a faint cry came from beneath the crib. The man's heart froze as he realized his terrible mistake. His child was safe, and the blood was that of a wolf, slain by Gelert in a desperate struggle to protect his family. The man's cries of anguish mingled with the dying breaths of the dog, and the village was forever marked by this tale of loyalty and tragic misunderstanding. Across the moors and forests of Britain, dark shapes moved silently through the night. These were the phantom black dogs, creatures of shadow and fear. Each county had its own tale, a spectral hound with glowing red eyes that haunted the lonely roads and desolate landscapes. Some said they were omens of death, appearing before a tragedy, while others believed they were the restless spirits of wronged souls, cursed to wander the earth forever. The most famous of these was the beast that inspired Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles, a creature whose presence was felt in every whispered legend and every flicker of movement in the darkness. In the Philippines, where storms rolled in with a ferocity unmatched by anything else in nature, there was a belief that lightning was not a random act of nature, but the bite of a supernatural dog named Kimat. This fearsome creature accompanied Tadaklan, the god of thunder, on his nightly patrols, his jaws snapping at the heavens. When Kimat struck, the sky would split open, and the earth would tremble under the force of his bite. To hear the rumble of thunder was to know that Kimat was near, his power a reminder of the raw, untamed forces that lurked just beyond the edge of human understanding. In the frozen realms of Norse mythology, where the end of the world was always just a heartbeat away, there were two dogs whose fates were bound to the apocalypse. Fenris, the monstrous wolf, was prophesied to break free of his chains and bring about Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. His howls would shake the heavens, and his jaws would consume the sun and the moon, plunging the world into darkness. But before Fenris' reign of terror could begin, another dog stood sentinel Garm, the blood-soaked guardian of Helheim. With 4 eyes that saw into the souls of the dead, Garm was a harbinger of doom, his presence signaling the final battle between the gods and the forces of chaos. In the ancient myths of Persia and India, dogs were more than just companions, they were the guardians of the afterlife, standing vigil at the very gates of paradise. In Persian mythology, 2 4-eyed dogs watched over the Chinvat Bridge, the perilous passage that souls must cross to reach the afterlife. These dogs, with their supernatural sight, could see the truth of a soul's deeds, and they would allow only the righteous to pass. In Hindu myth, the sun and moon dogs guarded the great god Indra, their keen senses ever alert to the dangers that threatened the divine order. These dogs were not just protectors, they were the final arbiters of who would enter the realm of the gods. Even in the modern world, where myths have faded into the background, dogs remain powerful symbols in urban legends and superstitions. The tale of the choking Doberman tells of a family dog that saves its owners by attacking an intruder, only to be found later, choking on the burglar's severed finger, a gruesome but heroic act that cements the dog's place as a modern-day guardian. But not all dog legends end in heroism. Across cultures, dogs are seen as omens, their howls and movements signaling death, disaster, or even the approach of the supernatural. In Japan, a dog climbing onto a roof foretells a fire, while in Britain, the sight of a black dog is said to bring bad luck. These superstitions are echoes of a time when the line between the natural and the supernatural was blurred, and dogs were both protectors and harbingers of the unknown. In the end, the story of dogs in myth and legend is a tale of suspense and mystery, a reminder that these loyal companions have always been more than just animals. They are the watchers in the night, the guardians of the afterlife, and the silent sentinels that stand between us and the darkness.